This is the week where Andor premiered, and it didn't show up. And it was the weakest competition that I've seen on Luminate in a long time. The 9th and 10th place shows of originals were under 300 million minutes watched. The week before that, 384, 327. If there was any week that a Disney Plus show could have had a pitiful audience for a brand new show from a major IP and had a great shot at charting, even if it had an hour and a half worth of a premiere, this would have been the week. With 2.5 hours, Andor didn't even show up. Renegade Online. The problem I have. And of course now, the Acolyte, it's not the gayest thing anymore. We got Andor! Sign up for Star Wars OnlyFans today.
So I heard about that. Of course, I haven't seen the episode because F that show. I don't care. Like I'll watch the episode so I can talk about it, on our channel or whatnot. But like before the show even came out, I literally said every single episode for a Star Wars show, for an episode of Star Wars is automatically 0 out of 10 because it's Disney Star Wars. It's not Star Wars. So I was like, I'll rate it. My ratings for Andor and the episodes are basically going to be for a generic sci-fi show, that you would see on like Sci-Fi Channel or something, For Star Wars, automatically. Anything else Disney does, 0 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, that's where you have to almost start everything with Disney because it's like you usually think, okay, I'll start at a 5 and we'll go. No, we're going to start like at a 2. I want to make this clear to everybody watching is that I don't care if television shows want to introduce gay characters or gay romance. The problem that comes in are several layers. So one is when it gets to be like Netflix and it's used as a gimmick in every show. It's a trope. Like every Netflix show, you've got to have a gay in it. It's like, or you got to have a trans character, or you have to have a gay. And then then they pushed it up the ladder. Then it wasn't just having a gay character. Then you had to have a gay sex scene in so many shows and all that. And it just became this stupid, annoying trope to where it's like, I'm trying to enjoy a show and here comes the DEI LGBTQ insert into this show that's so blatantly obvious because it has nothing to do with the story. Yeah. It serves absolutely no purpose to the characters. And here's the thing. We're getting this in Star Wars. Like this is the only reason it's there. Last week, Andor drops 3 episodes, right? On a Tuesday evening. Yep. 2.5 hours, didn't even make it into the weekly top 10 originals streaming chart. Like the easiest chart you could make it into, where they take out every other show on streaming that wasn't a streaming original show. So all the catalog content that gets consumed like crazy, like reruns of Grey's Anatomy or reruns of The Office and stuff like
Seinfeld.
This. Yes, all that gets taken out. It's only originals, right? New stuff. Andor couldn't make it into that. All they needed was 1.9 million people in America to turn the TV on and watch the 2.5 hours of Andor. 1.9 million people couldn't get it.
Out of 150 million subscribers that are on Disney Plus.
Well, 45, 50 million in the US, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
But still, here's the thing, though. Paramount Plus has as many or fewer subscribers. They have 68, 69 million subscribers, I think, globally. 70 million subscribers globally. They're getting 10 to 20 million people a week tuning in to their new shows. They're like Mobland right now is getting around 10 million viewers per week. And you've got 1923. We're talking 20 plus million per week watching on Paramount Plus. Disney Plus puts Star Wars on something, and they're lucky to get 4 million in a week. And of course the big problem is the amount of money they're spending, because it didn't cost $300 to $400 million to make a season of 1923. Didn't cost $300 to $400 million to make Landman. Didn't cost $300 to $400 million to make Mobland, which is on right now.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I've not even heard of that.
Which one? Mobland is the new one. You can't. Let me tell you what. I'll make it easy for you. Tom Hardy, Patty Considine from House of the Dragon, who played the old king in the first season. Helen Mirren's in this one, and Pierce Brosnan plays the mafia don, the Irish mafia don.
Oh, I'm all in already.
It's freaking great. It's freaking great. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but I want to back up a little bit because I brought up some value. These articles for like 2-3 years ago. Yes, they are. There's a reason for this. So to put this into context here of how problematic this stupid thing is and how ridiculous this is getting, and then I'm probably just going to lose my mind and go off the rails and really go on a rant. Where is Andor's massive audience? Blame Disney for too many bad Star Wars stories. This is from IndieWire from November of 2022. So,
Wow.
2.5 years ago. This was talking about the first season of Andor. Everybody knew this show had a pitiful audience size. The audience basically didn't exist. It was one of the lowest watched, if not, I think, the lowest watched Disney Plus original when it came to major IPs, specifically like Marvel and Star Wars, to that point. And the streaming service started in 2019. So 3 years in, and they had 3 times the number of subscribers to Disney Plus as when they started with The Mandalorian. Okay. And it was the worst in terms of viewership show that they had. It was also at that point, from what we knew, it was the most expensive show that Disney had made. $250+ million of net costs at that time. Almost $300 million. I think it was between I think it was 275. I'm trying to remember. It was $250 to $300 million to make that first season of Andor with a lot of film tax credits in the bank. It was outrageous, and it turned into the worst audience. What is flabbergasted to me is the fact that this show, and I don't care, well, Valiant, they kind of planned a multi-season show. Who cares?
Yeah.
There's been plenty of television stations over the years that plan, hey, we'll get 2 or 3 seasons out of this, and the show fails, and it's like, well, we can't justify spending any money, so we got to stop it. I loved Marco Polo on Netflix. They got through the end of season 2. This was 8 years ago now, and they canceled it. It was an awesome show. And it was great. And they killed it at the end of season 2, like right, and left you with this huge cliffhanger. They decided it was too much money. We didn't want to renew it. Did Disney do that here? No. They decided, let's double down, and having the worst audience that we've had for Star Wars and Marvel in 3 years of Disney Plus, let's go ahead and spend another $400 million and make a season 2.
The thing is, so they did do that with the Acolyte because it just got destroyed. And it didn't do anything for viewership.
But I don't think the Acolyte was ever intended necessarily for a second season. I mean, it wasn't.
According to Leslie Headland, because she was before it dropped, she said she was already got season 2 mapped out, and then they said season 2's canceled of the Acolyte. Now, but for Andor season 1, for the people that actually watched it, most people thought it was the best Disney Star Wars that they put out. I was not one of those people, but a lot of people did feel that way. So I think because of that, they were like, all right, we're going to do one more season just to lead up to Rogue One instead of doing these multiple seasons. So after season 1, they cancel all the rest of the multiple ones and say, we'll just do one more. But the money they spent just on the second season is ludicrous to me. Especially with the viewership numbers that they got for season 1. It just didn't justify it. I mean, I could see them saying, all right, look, a lot of people did like this show. It's not getting a whole lot of flack like some of our other stuff. Let's do another one, but let's keep this budget low and just tell what we need to tell in the story to lead up into Rogue One.
I mean, to me, it's genuinely embarrassing. And I want to remind folks of how bad it is. They try to say that Andor was picking up steam and things like this, but the fact of the matter is, I remember the average number, the viewership for this, like I said, was way down in the lowball universe. Unfortunately, this was before we had Luminate that was tracking things routinely. I think this was even a little bit predating some of the Nielsen stuff, or it might have been right around the time that Nielsen came in with the top 10 streaming. But even that was a little bit far away. But we know, like, from even with Samba as useless as Samba generally is, when you compare it to other Samba TV measurements, as long as it's in that same Samba universe, you actually get some decent data. And Andor was just pitiful by comparison. But one of the things that we talked about previously on the last show, and I want to remind people of this new 3-episode drop and how this is probably not going to matter at all.
Which I know why they did it, because they were trying to get the show to chart.
Right.
They're like, 3 episodes, 2.5 hours, the minutes watched, even if for the small audience, we'll be able to spin that. And then they still can't spin it.
They probably will be able to this Friday, I would think. I'd be shocked if it's not. But just as a comparison again, so recent piece from THR, Netflix currently with 301 million subscribers. Disney Plus, 178 million, or Disney, which I think they include the overlap of Hulu in there. But there's a lot of Hulu people that have Disney Plus and vice versa. So a lot of that is, it's not perfectly 140 million unique Disney subscribers and then 30 million or 40 million unique Hulu subscribers or whatever it is. But then you look at Warner Brothers, Paramount Global up there, Paramount's up there, Paramount Plus with 77 million, and NBC Universal Peacock with 36 million. And again, I want to remind folks that Paramount Plus with 77 million is absolutely week in, week out curb stomping Disney with their 178 million. I mean, curb stomping. And let me show you what I mean. We did this before. Here's 1923, 2.8 billion minutes watched on its season finale week. Had a 1 hour and 50-minute season finale. And then you look here, Black Mirror, 1 billion minutes. That's a binge drop. So we give that some deference. But here's the problem. April 18th through 24th. This is the week where Andor premiered. And it didn't show up. And it was the weakest competition that I've seen on Luminate in a long time. Meaning, if you look at 9th and 10th place, the 9th and 10th place shows of originals were under 300 million minutes watched. 9th and 10th were both over 400 million minutes watched. The week before that, 384, 327. So I don't have them all the way back. That's why I save these tabs. But this, if there was any week that a Disney Plus show could have had a pitiful audience for a brand new show from a major IP and had a great shot at charting, even if it had an hour and a half worth of a premiere, this would have been the week. With 2.5 hours, Andor didn't even show up. It had 2.5 days to do it, right? Because it premiered Tuesday night, and this chart goes from Friday all the way through the following Thursday. So Andor had Tuesday night, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. But you and I both know, just like any television show, just like any YouTube video, right? After 2.5 days, the audience that's planning to tune in
drops.
Overwhelmingly already has tuned in.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Now, I'm really curious to see. I want this thing to chart this Friday. And even if it comes in at the 10th place, and I'll tell you why. Because if it comes in 10th place, then we'll get to see what it did the previous week. Meaning, it's not on this chart because the number was too small. Publicly, we don't know what that number is. Luminate does, but we don't know what it is. Variety knows what it is. We don't know what it is. But if it charts for the second week, which that second week's measurement period will end tomorrow night at midnight, so it'll have another 2.5 days from the second set of 3 episodes that dropped. If it comes in, and hey, people caught up with it. They tuned in the second week. Maybe it'll have 500 or 600 million minutes watched. It's entirely possible. I think that should be a minimum threshold for this thing. But then we'll get to see, okay, well, it didn't make the previous week where it couldn't even pull up 279 million minutes watched. How many? Was it 100 million? Was it 150 million? Was it 250 million? Was it 277 million and missed it by a tiny bit? I don't know. But that's why I said we knew for a fact that the domestic audience for Andor, with it, after basically 3 days of it being on television, at that point, the audience was absolutely under 1.9 million because it didn't make the chart. At least in terms of how all of these companies are measuring these things now by saying, when you do a view, whether it's Disney or Netflix, this is how they all, that's how they do it now. A view is is the assumption that if you started watching the show, you finished it, right? It's 2.5 hours, but that's not much. That's a long movie. So it's, you could sit there and watch it one night, but certainly over the course of 3 days, you should be able to finish it. But they count a view as somebody that watched it all the way through. And that would be the case for all these shows. Same thing for anything.
So if you started it and you got halfway through it and you're like, screw this, and turned and shut it off, that wouldn't count as a view?
Well, yes and no. It counts as somebody turned it on, but the way they do this, because they measure minutes watched, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to tell. You could have, if you have 100 minutes of watch time available, for example,
right,
and it says that, well, there were 100 million minutes watched. Well, then you could say, all right, well, that means that 1 million people tuned in and watched it all the way through. It had an audience of 1 million. Or you could say 100 million people tuned in to watch it and turned it off after 1 minute. Right.
Right.
Okay. You can't delineate. Yeah. So in order to regulate how you compare, which it's understandable. Now, again, these streamers know. Netflix, Disney, everybody else, they know how many people hit the play button and what the average watch time for each episode was in terms of, did everybody finish it? Did they watch? If we had an hour of runtime, was the average amount of time watched 30 minutes, 15 minutes, the whole hour? Right. But when it comes to these charts, the way you typically measure it, the way Netflix puts it out, the way Disney has always measured it is that a view is considered the entire watch time. So in the case of Andor, you had 2.5 hours. You had 150 minutes. So in order to make it on this chart, 278.9 million, right? If 1 million people watched 2.5 hours of Andor, that would be 150 million minutes on the Luminate chart. If 2 million people had watched Andor start to finish, that would be 300 million minutes on this chart. And it would have charted.
Yeah.
It would have made it. It would have been actually in the number 9 position. But it didn't. So that's how we gauge it. Because when I say things like back here, if I go back here and I say, 1923, roughly 20 million people tuned in. Well, okay, if they didn't watch the whole last episode, or maybe people were catching up and all this, you could say, well, that the real figure might have been 40 million. We don't know.
Right.
Paramount knows, but we don't. We just go by, here's how many minutes were consumed that week. And then you look at, especially once a show is over, you look at the totality of it and you say, okay, well, there was a total of 10 billion minutes consumed of season 2 of 1923. And if everybody watched the season from start to finish, you can divvy up and say, well, the average audience size for this was 25 million people a week. That's how you go week to week. But again, you kind of get the idea.
Yeah.
So
for investor purposes, like, they should be required to publicly release these numbers.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.